Milo Yiannopoulos.
Let me suggest another reason. Let me suggest another reason why people of color, to use the left's preferred expression, are sometimes a little reluctant to express libertarian or conservative points of view. And I'll tell you something that happened to me at American University a few days ago. Guy lined up for the Q&A, very politely, black guy. He said, I was physically threatened by Black Lives Matter on my way in here. Just for coming to hear you speak. And if you don't believe me, it's on camera. He was...
Wait, hold on. Did she just change your mind?
What?
Did she just change your mind? I think I felt a shift because she yelled shit out.
Yes, she interrupted me with a bogus buzzword, I'm convinced. And what he said to me was, what do I say? What do I say to black people who have bought into this nonsense when I just want to go about my business listening to a talk? And I said to him, well, they are guilty of the worst kind of racism. They're guilty of the kind of racism they're guilty of the kind of racism that suggests all black people must think alike. They are guilty of the kind of racism that insists...
Excuse me, Senator. Thank you for your enthusiasm. If you'd please be seated. Thank you.
They're guilty of the kind of racism that suggests that all black people must think the same. They're just in the same way that people who have problems with me being a gay conservative are guilty of a sort of homophobia, a real homophobia, which actually does delegitimize and belittle a particular group and sort of put them in a box. And he said, well, what do I say to these people? And I said, well, look, here's what you say to them. You go out, you calmly and politely, you say, if you believe that the civil rights struggle matters at all, if you believe that the fight to allow black people to have their voices heard, to have an equal footing with whites in this country, if you believe in the restitution and reparations after slavery, if you believe that it is an important goal to hear black voices, hear mine. Because not every black person agrees with Black Lives Matter. Not every gay person believes in the gay lobby. Not every woman is a feminist. And this kind of identitarian politics that we heard from the front that crucifies people who step outside of their racial or sexual groups because they have the wrong ideology is the worst sort of bigotry. And those people... And if you're wondering why people of color are sometimes scared, not scared in the way social justice warriors pretend to be scared because a conservative is on campus, but black people are actually scared because somebody got assaulted at American University the other day. If you are wondering why there aren't more people of color standing up for these sorts of opinions, you might want to pull out a mirror. Well, political...
That's it.
I got the microphone, I have more patience, I have more determination, you will lose. Political correctness differs from etiquette and politeness in a couple of obvious ways. Etiquette is a way we all navigate one another. It's the way that we have learned to interact, to successfully negotiate social and professional situations with people who didn't grow up with our exact worldview and background. So we have a system of etiquette to enable us to do that. And some of those rules of etiquette require us to use euphemism and politeness strategies in order not to offend people that come from other cultures and other backgrounds. Now, political correctness is a little different. Political correctness describes a sort of organized system of lying, designed to save the feelings of delicate wallflowers at the expense of reason, fact, and truth. And political correctness at its most dangerous has even become deadly. Political correctness is what stopped people reporting the Fort Hood shooter, even though they knew he was into radical Islam. Political correctness is what stopped the police. It's what stopped the police arresting the rape. Okay, if you don't believe in anything else...
Could we please allow our guest speaker to go on without any interruptions? Thank you.
If you if you don't care about anything else, allow me to suggest to you that you might care about the rape of 1,400 young girls, and perhaps listen to the end of it and see what you think about it. Political correctness was what prevented, or at least retarded, the police and the government from arresting Pakistani rape gangs in Rotherham in the UK. Over the course of 10 years, these familial Muslim rape gangs raped 1,400 young girls. And they weren't stopped, even though the police knew what was going on, because of political correctness, the fear of being seen as racist. So it's a sort of, for me at least, it steps outside, beyond the realms of etiquette, beyond the realms of politeness strategies, the way we deal with other people from other cultures, and it becomes a kind of organized, systematic lying, designed to save some feelings at the expense of reason, logic, truth, and very often the rights and safety of others. And not the kind of social justice safety, the horse shit safety, the kind of, you know, when students say, Milo Yiannopoulos is a threat to my physical safety, grow the fuck up. But there is a kind of real sense in which political correctness in its most extreme forms has become dangerous to the rights, freedoms, and physical safety, and even the life of others. That's the difference between political correctness and etiquette. Thank you. I'd like to build on what Christina said. I mean, most of the people causing trouble in this room are, what, 20 years old? You don't know anything. You don't know anything. So I would encourage, and I don't mean that to be offensive, although, you know, if you take it as that, I don't give a shit. But why not try, you mentioned Socrates earlier, why not try one of the great virtues of the Greek philosophers, intellectual humility? Why not consider the possibility that somebody else might have something to add to your view of the world? Why not consider the possibility, the radical notion, that you could be wrong? No, I don't agree that bigoted speech is always a bad thing. I think it's important to hear from them. I think it's important to hear from them. You see, what the left wants to do is it wants to enable its extremists on its own side, the sexists and misandrists of the feminism, the black supremacists of Black Lives Matter. They want to enable the extremists on their own side and silence the extremists on the other. Well, I don't like the extremists on either side. Racists, I don't like them, and they don't like me. I'm a miscegenatory, gay Jew. They don't like me at all. But what I want to do is give a platform to all speech. I want more speech of all kinds. Why? I'll explain to you in one very simple example why that's the case. And a very successful example of this was the British National Party in the UK, which unlike UKIP, for instance, which is a perfectly respectable mainstream party, the British National Party was a racist party led by a very odious character called Nick Griffin. Now, for a long time, the British National Party was doing very well, out of anxiety about, understandable, I think, anxiety about immigration and the changing nature of local communities. Lots of people started voting BNP in Britain. Now, these people weren't racist and bigots. They were voting out of anxiety and frustration. So here's what happened. Here's what happened when the media embargo, if you like, was lifted on the leader of the BNP. Nick Griffin appeared on the BBC's Question Time for 1 hour. This was at a time in which the BNP was controlling some local councils. They had successfully stood for election and won overall control of some local councils in Britain. Quite an extraordinary and not a particularly proud moment in British history. But the day Nick Griffin appeared on Question Time, and the BBC was criticized mercilessly for giving this guy a platform. This is hate speech, this is bigotry, he's a racist, how dare you put this man on TV? The BNP...
Oh, that was a clever one.
What happened, of course, as anyone with any brains would be able to predict, was that the BNP evaporated. When British people saw what the guy who ran this party was really like, they stopped voting for that party. A couple of years later, the BNP is no longer a force in British politics. This is why it isn't just important to give platforms to ordinary speech, it's important to give platforms to all speech. Because sunlight is the best disinfectant, and the best way to deal...
Absolutely.
The best way to deal with people that you don't agree with, whether they are conservatives or progressives, is the full glare of the spotlight, because you should have the confidence in your own opinions, and you should have the fortitude and courage to believe that you can beat them in a fair, open marketplace of ideas. And if you believe those things...
Absolutely right.
If you believe those things... you have nothing to fear from any speaker. From this, but just to make an observation, I'm a third of the way through into a 66 college tour, and I am in a position to make a couple of generalizations and observations. I am stunned by the indecorousness, rudeness, and plain lack of courtesy and respect shown to respected speakers by the left, and I see nothing even remotely comparable on the libertarian side or on the conservative side. The level of rudeness shown to your fellow audience members and to respected professors is so shocking to me. So I can understand why you might want to come and be rude to me, because I can take it and I'm a provocateur, and I'm not going to do what you do, which is cry the victim afterwards. What I don't understand, and I have never understood, is the level of outright rudeness displayed to a classy lady who is coming here with facts and evidence to challenge your sloppy thinking. I've never understood it, and it speaks so poorly of you. And I just got a word of warning before I pass back. This is the year, just one word of warning for you guys. This is the year the public starts to see these videos. My college tour is penetrating way outside the media that is normally interested in this stuff. Your parents are going to start pulling you from college if you keep this shit up. They will not donate to these schools. Look at what has happened at Missouri. And I'll tell you something. You privileged, spoiled brats who come from nice middle-class families. Daddy pays your phone bill. Daddy bought you a car. Daddy pays your college fees. Not my daddy, your daddy. Not him. He wouldn't pay your fucking fees. I wonder what's going to happen when your parents see some of this stuff. Because let me tell you, the feedback so far from my tour has been abject horror. And I'll give you one data point, and that is Missouri, which bought into the worst kind of race-baiting, hoaxing, and lying from the student body. What has happened at Missouri? I'll tell you, two things have happened at Missouri. They have lost tens of millions of dollars in alumni donations, and enrollment is down so much. Enrollment is down so much, they've had to close 2 dorms. Do you know what those dorms are called? Strength and excellence. These are the things you lose when you buy into social justice. It's funny, you know, I mean, liberals and the progressive left have run campuses almost unopposed for 30 years, and now liberals are telling us that spaces run by liberals are hotbeds of sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, and rape. Maybe it's time to switch things up in the faculty. Just as, and you won't like this either, just as black communities keep voting in Democrat mayors, black communities keep voting in Democrat mayors and see their cities reduced to rubble. Maybe it's time for a Republican. You see stuff about violence, I'll tell you. The violence is coming not from the right, but from the left. And it is informed and justified in the minds of activists by this zealotry. Yep. And it has just started to tip over in my tour. And I have to tell these kids they are going to destroy their lives if they believe that the kind of yelling and screaming that sometimes tips over into physical altercations, which does not come from Trump supporters, does not come from libertarians, does not come from conservatives, comes exclusively and only on campuses from the left. If you think this stuff is justified, you are going to destroy the rest of your life on the basis of an ideology that is not rooted in fact. I urge you to reconsider.
And I would like...
In my experience, the left historically is very bad at ejecting its own worst actors. The Democrat Party has always made space for race hustlers and feminist liars. In fact, it rewards them; it doesn't punish them.
The Republicans make room for some.
The Republicans very rare. I mean, the Republicans make no room for racists, but Republicans make no room for anybody like that. They get ejected from public life, and there is a reason why in media all the plagiarism scandals happen on the left, because the left looks the other way, forgives and forgets, and tolerates its own worst actors. The stuff we've been talking about this evening is alive and well in the Democrat Party. Its equivalent on the far right does not exist in the Republican Party.
Yep.
You interrupted a woman. He asked me a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was silent.
Was I mansplaining?
You mansplained.
You?
Second thing, and I was a protester and a hippie leftist in the 60s, but that meant I was for free speech. We loved comedians were welcome. I mean, we had George Carlin, we had Lenny Bruce. They would not come near you people. The ones that are screeching.
Well, the comedians today won't go near you. Chris Rock won't go near you. Jerry Seinfeld won't go near you. Comedians who share your politics won't go near you. That should tell you something.
But
I hope that I can speak for both of us when I say that neither of us has any sympathy either with the religious right of the 90s, who were the authoritarian instinct then. Stephen, and I would caution anyone here against trying any sort of lazy pigeonholing, because it just ain't going to fly with us. The left for 30 years has been so lazy, they haven't really had to make arguments. They've just said, oh, don't listen to him, he's a misogynist. Don't listen to her, she's got internalized misogyny. It isn't going to work anymore. These slogans don't work now. Nobody believes you. It doesn't stop the events from happening. You're not persuading anyone in the audience. It doesn't work anymore. I'm a Brit. I don't even vote here. Christina is a Democrat. We have no more love from the authoritarian religious right in the 90s, who, for instance, were saying that video games could make you violent and prompted school shootings. Bollocks. Than we do for the progressives today who say video games can make you sexist. Also bollocks. What we believe in is the free, open exchange of ideas. And if you believe in an open marketplace of ideas, creative freedom, intellectual diversity, today your enemy is the progressive left. There is no alternative. Like any other set of ideas, Islam is a set of ideas. And like any other set of ideas, we are perfectly entitled to interrogate it and find it wanting. I personally find it wanting. I would also like to say, as a gay person, I am fucking terrified by mass Muslim immigration, because the homophobia in the Islamic community, in the Ummah, is not restricted to terrorists. It is not restricted to ISIS. 51% of British Muslims believe that gay sex should be against the law. This is not Muslims in Syria. This is not Muslims in Raqqa. This is Muslims who live 3 streets away from me. Every other one of them believes that my lifestyle should be illegal. 39% of British Muslims believe that a woman should always obey her husband. Where the fuck are feminists on that? 25%. 25% of British Muslims believe that Sharia law should be instituted, which under certain circumstances treats a woman's...
Milo, he's trying to narrow in on a question.
Well, I'm going to finish. Treats a woman's testimony as worth half of a man's. The Queers for Palestine, possibly the stupidest people to walk the face of the earth, overlook the statistic that 97% of Palestinians believe that homosexuality is an unacceptable lifestyle choice. I'm not scared by terrorists, I'm scared by Islam. Gender studies should be abolished in all publicly funded universities. Students who go to study gender studies, particularly at federal funded universities, come out dumber than when they went in. They come out believing lies. They come out with their critical faculties impaired, not improved. They come out more fragile than they arrived. They come out less able to have stable relationships with people, less able to cope in the world of work, less able to be functional, well-rounded human beings. Gender studies departments are damaging young people. They should be shut down.
Threats now.
It's an amazing loss of perspective. You know, you have these advocacy statistics about the supposed explosion of Islamophobia, which, you know, basically always boils down to hijab pulling. Like people forgotten 9/11. I mean, are you people too young to remember that you know, buildings were brought down in New York, Belgium a couple of weeks ago, Paris a few months before that, and you're worried about a bit of hijab pulling? Get a fucking grip.
Why do you feel compelled to defend an ideology that would throw you off a roof for looking like Rachel Maddow?
Oh, and by the way, it's not just terrorists. It is 10, 11, 12 mainstream Muslim countries that would execute me for being gay. This is not terrorism. This is Islam, and I am entitled to dislike it.
Okay, we're gonna
the problem with the modern progressive movement is that it's run out of things to fight for. Feminism has nothing left to fight for. The gays have nothing left to fight for. And so, you know, you have an ever-dwindling number of ever more hysterical people who have to band together in order to get anything done at all. And they have this idea of intersectionality, which basically means some people's lives are shit for multiple reasons. and an attempt to kind of band together the problems of a bunch of different disparate groups that have nothing to do with one another. It is the sign of a movement in its death throes, shrieking out in pain and desperately looking for friends to remain relevant.
To the next question.
Outside that,
So I was scheduled to debate at Manchester, and both me and my interlocutor were both banned from the college campus. Well, fine, but my feminist opponent in the debate, the title of the debate was, "Does feminism have a problem with free speech?" The problem in Europe is that there are multiple pressures on free speech. Many people in Europe do not appreciate the value and significance of something like a First Amendment because they haven't grown up with it. It is way worse in Britain. The difference, I think, between Britain and America is in England, they'll ban you and you'll never get onto campus, and the faculty will collude with the students to do that. Here, the faculty will grudgingly allow you to do it because they can't really say no because of the First Amendment, but then you get the idiot brigade. Look at the unholy alliance between people who are complained about offense-taking on behalf of Muslims. Don't say the wrong thing about Islam. I mean, we'll blow you up, we'll kill you, we'll throw you off a roof, we'll hang you from a crane in Iran. But, oh, don't say don't say that Muhammad married a 9-year-old. Fuck off. And in addition, you know, they make common cause with the most noxious and terrible feminists. You see the results of this, and just look. Observe how they behave to the minority groups they claim to represent, to the people they claim to be giving a voice to, when those people step off ideological reservation. Look at the disgusting language used about Margaret Thatcher, Sarah Palin, Michelle Bachmann. You might not like those politicians, but look at the kind of sexually charged, lurid language used by the left against women who don't sign up to the sisterhood.
Dr. Summers, they do it with her all the time.
And look at what's happened this evening, the lack of respect and courtesy, the bizarre allegations of racism, who even knows where that came from. Look at how I'm treated. Look at how Ben Carson, who was destroyed by the liberal press, you know, look at Clarence Thomas or Thomas Sowell, the way the left speaks about people who demand the right to believe what they believe and not sign up to the left's idea of what you should believe according to your body parts or your skin color is truly disgusting. It's also worth considering in the light of what Stephen's saying, there isn't a single world-class university anywhere in the Muslim world. Not one. Why? Because there are structural problems with Islam that prevent this from happening. And you know, you have to
apply the same standard.
You have two kinds of Muslims in the U.S. You know, some of you aren't going to like this, but I'm going to tell you anyway because it's true. You have two kinds of Muslims in the U.S. You have nice, assimilated, middle-class Muslims who, let's be honest, aren't the most devout believers. They don't necessarily do namaz. So some of them don't pray 5 times a day. They drink, they smoke, they have sex outside, whatever. You know, let's just say they're cultural Muslims, like I might be a cultural Catholic, perhaps, you might say, right? These are not people who pray 5 times a day. You have these people, and you have them here because you don't border any Muslim countries. You need to take an intercontinental flight to get here, which limits the sort of people who can arrive. So you get nice, middle to upper class Muslims from nice families who are westernized and assimilated, and they're your friends. And you think, gosh, these people are saying such terrible things about Muslims, but I know so many nice Muslims, that can't be true. Well, it's because of where you are in the world, right? So you have those nice middle and upper class Muslims, and you have terrorists. That's all you have here.
I don't have a problem with you.
What you don't have here is what Germany has. 1.4 million Syrian refugees, or should I say migrants, who come in, commit the most appalling crimes and abuses against women, homosexuals, trans people. You've got nothing to say about that, by the way. What you don't have is a massive influx of working-class Muslim populations, and it will come, and it is coming, and when it does, you will think very differently about this.